The Paint Mines of Colorado are beautiful badlands known for their incredible... Chester! Chester!
Whoa! What's up?
What are you doing?
I'm just working on the new swing set that I want to build.
Wait, but didn't you start building that thing like 10 years ago?
Well, yeah, but you see, the other day I was eating a sandwich, peanut butter, very tasty, and I thought to myself, you know what I should finish? The swing set. So then I decided to do it.
Okay, but it's kind of all rusted over from sitting in the rain for 10 years. I mean, don't you think maybe you need some new materials for it?
Nah, being out in the elements makes a man tougher.
But that's a swing set. Well, I certainly have a lot of questions for Chester, and I am sure that you have a lot of questions about the paint mines, like how did they get so colorful? Well, believe it or not, Chester's rusty old swing set and the Colorado paint mines actually have a lot in common. You see, when Chester began his project many years ago, he started with beautifully clean and silver iron pipes. But now, after leaving it outside for so long, the iron has completely rusted over. So let's look at what's happening here, because believe it or not, Chester's project is the key to understanding what's going on in the paint mines.
Ah, see? I told you it would come in handy one of these days.
Let's talk a little bit about rust first. Rust forms when iron is exposed to two things: oxygen and water. The oxygen usually comes from the air, and the water can come from a few different places. The water can be in the form of moisture in the air, like you feel on a humid day, or it can be in a more concentrated form, like in rainfall, or even a lake or other body of water washing over the material. The process can be slow or pretty fast depending on the environmental conditions, but the bottom line is that when you expose iron to these two things, it will eventually rust. Now, what we call rusting in everyday language has a little bit different of a scientific term. We call rusting the oxidation of iron. Simply put, rusting, or oxidizing iron, actually means we are taking some oxygen from the air and binding it to iron on a molecular level. The oxidation of iron is a chemical reaction that takes place naturally as long as you have oxygen, water, and iron. And when it does occur, some pretty neat stuff can happen. In my Craters of the Moon video, we briefly talked about the reddish color that some of the rocks had. And if you haven't seen that video yet, I would highly recommend checking it out because it'll give you some extra context, and also, it's about volcanoes, and volcanoes are super cool, so... Anyway, the land at Craters of the Moon is a black, barren, volcanic landscape. It's full of black rock and ash from volcanic eruptions that happened thousands of years ago. But there are some rocks that are reddish in color there, and these really stick out in the mass of otherwise black rock. And right here is where we get our first aha moment. The red color of these rocks comes from the iron in them oxidizing. Now, this is a super important point because here we see that adding oxygen to iron can cause the rock to change color. Spoiler, this is exactly what's happening in the paint mines. You see, the paint mines are a form of badlands, or rock, that's been eroded away very easily. All this erosion exposes so much of the rock to the open air and the elements like rainfall. And what happens when you have iron, water, and oxygen mixed together? Oxidation. And what can oxidation do? Change the color of the rock. The colors of the paint mines come from oxidized iron that's mixed in the rock. In other words, the rock that formed the paint mines long ago contains iron in it to begin with. This iron gets exposed to moisture and oxygen as the rock erodes, and over time it oxidizes and changes color. Now, that is pretty darn cool if you ask me, and I absolutely loved learning about this. But it doesn't totally answer our question, because now we wonder, why does the oxidation of iron make it change color? Well, in short, the answer is that oxidized iron isn't just iron anymore. It's a completely different substance with its own properties. Oxidized iron is no longer just iron. It's iron plus oxygen, or as we like to call it, it's something called iron oxide. Okay, here comes just one more plot twist, and this one was one of the coolest things that I learned, so buckle up real quick. There are several different types of iron oxides. All contain iron and oxygen, but in slightly different quantities. These different ratios of iron and oxygen will determine what color the iron oxide becomes. For example, the iron oxide whose molecule contains 3 iron atoms and 4 oxygen atoms is black in color, while the iron oxide that has 2 irons and 3 oxygens is red. And hey, you know what else is red? Rust. And rust just so happens to be this red-colored iron oxide that has 2 irons and 3 oxygens. How's that for a full circle moment? Now, the science of how color works is incredibly complex and incredibly fascinating, so I would love to make a whole video on it one day. But for now, and to keep it simple, we can just say that having certain amounts of iron and oxygen in each molecule influences the chemical properties of that molecule, and this, in turn, influences the color. Something else that I found fascinating is that many of the rocks in the paint mines don't actually contain iron normally. Iron is considered an impurity in these rocks, and I just thought it was kind of cool that something considered an impurity could literally be the reason for the place being so incredibly beautiful in the first place. Now, something else to know about oxidized iron and rust is that it does weaken the material, so we should probably go let Chester know that he shouldn't be using those rusty pipes for a swing set.
Nah, forget the swing set. I'm gonna go see those paint mines instead. I mean, the swing set will be okay another 10 years, right? Yeah, I'll worry about it later.
Okay. Or that works too. So there you have it. That is why the paint mines are so colorful. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below so that you can keep learning the stories behind nature's magic. If there's a park, whether it's a national park, a state park, or any park at all that you would like to learn about, leave a comment down below and tell me all about it, because I just might decide to make a video out of it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.